and welcome to this video where we're going to talk about the Poetics by Aristotle and how Aristotle thought that tragedy can be used as an ethical tool. So first of all, this is the work that we'll be talking about. It's quite short. This is commentary and text bilingually. So the text is really short. I would highly recommend to read it if this is something that you're interested in. It's one of the first discussions that we have in the Western world of literature and different kinds of genres and what they can bring to the table. So it's a really interesting text, and I'm going to be focusing specifically on tragedy. So before we go into how tragedy can be used for moral reasons and as an ethical tool, I briefly want to go over tragedy and the function that it played in society in ancient Greece. So tragedies were really important. It was not like going to a concert or something nowadays. Instead, it was a very, very important thing, more like the Olympics maybe. Even to the point where people could get refunds on their tickets. There was it was called a theoric fund. And the fund was basically so that people who didn't have money to pay for these tickets could get the money back and still go. So it was seen as something very important. Like if you look at the monetary thing, but also the time that these tragedies were performed was in important moments. So for example, during the Dionysia, which is a festival. And specifically for this festival, there would be discussions about good people, and there was a whole parade, and people who did good things for society that year would be given awards. So there was a bit of societal pressure to join, and also it was a huge display of all the wonderful things that had happened in society that year. So it is in this context that we can find tragedy. Now, without going into specific tragedies, the character of tragedies is basically, it's a relatively general story. We're not following specific people. Instead, what we're doing is following kinds of people, people who have certain character traits, which is also what distinguishes it from history, where you do follow specific people. So the action is more, or the focus is more on the action than on the people. What you often see in tragedies is that someone makes a fatal mistake and that it basically goes downhill from there. So sometimes that means that their family will get cursed and lots of stuff will happen. But there's basically one mistake, and then stuff kind of starts rolling from there, and basically everything goes downhill. But what do you as an audience member, what are you expected to do with this? So the gist of it is you're expected to experience pity and fear. Why and how? So these characters that I just mentioned, the ones who are in tragedies, they're kind of your average person but better. So they're average enough that you can relate to them, but they're also a bit better in the sense that you think that they should do well and you want them to do well, and you kind of look up to them, but then they make this one tiny mistake and that's why it goes wrong. So the other stuff that they're doing is fine. It's just this one mistake. And what this will do to the audience, according to Aristotle, is that it will make them afraid that this will happen to them, but it will also allow them to show pity for the people that it actually happens to. So basically you see someone else fuck up and you'll be like, oh shit, that sucks for you. Also, I don't want to do that. So that's kind of how you're supposed to feel when you're in the audience. But why does Aristotle think this is fun, and why does he want people to watch tragedies? So he does think it's fun. He says it's intellectual pleasure. So it's kind of like solving a puzzle. You're trying to figure out how this causally fits together. Which event leads to the next? How is this all connected? And how can I prevent it from happening to me? That's a very important thing. How can I prevent myself from getting into the same situation? Because this is a logically and causally connected structure. that I don't want to end up in. So basically you're trying to teach yourself how to not fuck up in society, not make these fatal mistakes that the people in tragedy did, whilst at the same time still experiencing the fear that would go along with that by seeing other people experience it. And this is how tragedy for Aristotle has a very important moral function. There's lots of people here, it's a big social event, and there we can explain to people what will happen if you fuck up. And this is not like, oh, you forgot to pay something or something. No, this is like you commit a moral mistake and it goes downhill from there, morally speaking, and very, very big things happen. It's one small moral mistake or something that could easily have been avoided, and then it kind of gets bigger and bigger and worse. Examples are not letting someone be buried on their own land, or denying something else. It's really small. The burial mistake is, of course, Sophocles' Antigone. I think that's a really clear one, where it is not a big moment, like deciding whether someone can or cannot be buried somewhere. Of course, for the other people it is, but you can see how this is a small decision in the grand scheme of things. Yet, in the end, it kind of gets bigger and bigger, and he can see that he has made the wrong decision. So this is kind of how tragedies work. You see someone else fuck up, and you're supposed to learn that that's not what you're supposed to do. So I hope you will now feel excited to read a tragedy or watch a tragedy, or maybe even read Aristotle's Poetics, and also that you enjoyed this video. Have a nice day. Bye!